Uh, Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today, we have a special event for the Irish Whiskey Society America. This is our sweet singles whiskey and chocolate pairing, where we're going to be sampling 3 single malts from Knappogue Castle, along with the variety of different chocolates, and do a bunch of combinations along the way, and see what we can come up with. This is all about having fun. I don't think there's any right combination. I think if you saw, what was provided, um, what we're not going to be doing today is basically saying this one goes with this one, and that's the way it is. It's going to be more of we've got 3 different single malts under the Knappogue Castle brand, and we've got 7 different chocolates. And we're going to have the opportunity to basically try each whiskey with each chocolate and kind of come up with, maybe with amongst the group as well as individually, what we think works the best or our favorites, that kind of thing. Because everybody's taste profile's different. There's no real right or correct version of this, I guess is how I would put it. Any foodies amongst us, or chocolate connoisseurs? I am not one of those. So
Hardly.
if any of you are and want to offer your insight as we go, feel free. If you're any experts in chocolate, this is all kind of having fun. I think most of us, we enjoy drinking Irish whiskey. So part of this is to maybe try to enhance the experience. Chocolate and whiskey do share certain flavor profiles. So one of the things we're going to find, or if you have participated in one of these before, even any kind of food pairing, there's 2 ways to look at it, I guess. One is to complement the flavors of the whiskey. The other would be to kind of contrast it. So, bitter versus sweet, that kind of thing. So there's 2 different ways. We're going to probably do both as we go. So before we kind of kick off into the combinations, I encourage you, if you haven't already, for the 12 year. And I'm recommending, I think I sent this out, everyone, have 3 glasses just so you can, as we're kind of going back and forth between the whiskeys and the chocolates, it's just easier to not have to keep repouring in the same glass. But having said that, Sláinte, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Pleasure.
And what I'm going to do is we'll spend a few minutes up front kind of going over the inventory, so to speak, talk about the whiskeys, talk about the chocolates, and then we'll start getting into some combinations. So first, Knappogue Castle, and that is the correct way to pronounce it. So I think so those are, fans of the musical group, the Pogues. So it's Knappogues as opposed to Knappogue, that kind of thing. So you hear a lot of different versions of this along the way, at least I have over the years, but Knappogue is the correct version or pronunciation. So the first one that we kind of kicked off with is part of the core range, the 12-year-old single malt, and all 3 of these are single malts. This brand is known for single malts. Probably the most famous, actually, is not a single malt. If you can see this, this is the kind of the famous bottling that a lot of people knew. This was kind of the unicorn. This is the Knappogue Castle 1951, but this is actually a single pot still. But it was, I think it might still be, it might not be, depending on some of the stuff just coming out in the last year or 2. But it was the the oldest commercially available Irish whiskey bottle, released in '87. So it was a 36-year-old single pot still, which you can still find auction sites, things like that, goes for, usually well over $1,000. We will not be drinking that today.
Unfortunately, I had a sample of that last year.
Yeah. So what you think?
I thought it was good, and when that last drop was gone, I said I wish I had more.
Yeah.
It was just like a little sample bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I didn't get the 1951 in my pack, I guess.
No, yeah.
that's for another day, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if
definitely.
no, although we talked about, the whole idea of highlighting flavor profiles and such with the chocolates. I'm not sure I'd experiment with chocolates with that one. I think I might just want to kick back and enjoy it on its own. But that was one of the original releases under this brand name, when the family took over the castle and renovated it. And then for a number of years after that, they would release vintage bottles that had years on it. So you can still see those floating around. Some of you may have had them. And then they made a change, I think around 2010 or 11, where they went away from the vintage releases and came out with what is the core range, the actual age statement single malts. So if you see something that has a year on it instead, it's fairly rare now because they don't release those anymore. But they still pop up from time to time. But the core range, the 12-year single malt, is aged exclusively in bourbon casks. The other two both have a sherry component, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the 12-year that we're going to be sampling today, bourbon cask, 43% ABV. These are Bushmill sourced. They're triple distilled. So, with the 12-year bourbon, anyone who's fans of just bourbon, exclusive bourbon aged whiskeys, you get the honey, the vanilla, some little bit of spice on this, little somewhat fruity. It's a real nice, sipping whiskey. And I think how this will be different than the other two in the range today as we go along, doesn't have the sherry component. So that's going to be that, and the ABV are going to what differentiates, besides the age, the additional aging. But has anybody not had whiskeys from the Knappogue lineup before?
I've never had any.
Okay, so
I got a bottle of 12. I can tell you it goes good with chocolate because my wife stole some of it to make a chocolate whiskey cake.
okay, there you go.
Okay.
So I give it a thumbs up with chocolate.
Should have sent that out with the packs maybe. But yeah, so this, if you're a fan, I'm a fan of exclusively bourbon aged single malts, which used to be more commonplace, I guess is how I'd put it. And this is not meant as a criticism by any means, but Teeling came along and really started to push the wine finish whiskeys. And then when more and more brands and distilleries came along, everybody's trying to differentiate. So you saw more and more different finishes, different wood types, what have you. And the simple, I'll call it, just bourbon cask aged whiskey kind of went into the back corner, so to speak. So it's nice every once in a while, if you haven't had something like this, to kind of go back to it, because this is kind of what you might call the roots of Irish whiskey, before a lot of the other wood types and wine finishes and such came along. So I kind of make it a point, whether it be something like this or maybe the Jack Ryan. The Beggar's Bush is also 12-year bourbon exclusive maturation. So they're nice. You can find old Cooley malts as well. They're nice to kind of go back to. The other two whiskeys are also single malts. The 14-year-old differs in a couple ways. One is the 12-year being 43%. The 14-year-old is 46%. So you're going to get a little bit higher alcohol content with that. The other thing that makes it unique, it's 14 years, so 2 years longer, but this uses a marrying technique, so it's not finished. So what it is it's a two 14-year-old single malts. One's aged in bourbon for 14 years. The other's aged in Oloroso sherry for 14 years. And then what they do at the end, they basically blend the two together. Now, what makes up the 14-year-old, it's 80% of the bourbon cask matured, and it's 20% of the sherry cask matured. So that's how that one is constructed. Conversely, the 16-year-old, again, it's now another 2 years older. It goes back to the 43% ABV. It also has a sherry component, but it's what I would probably call the more traditional method, and that is it ages for a little over 14 years bourbon again, but then it empties that into sherry casks for just under 2 years. So it's more of your traditional finishing. So when we're drinking those, you'll be able to kind of taste the difference between a finished versus one that has a full sherry component to it. And I think what's going to be interesting about these, because they're all a little bit different, when we start doing the chocolates, different flavor traits from the chocolate will work well probably with the sherry versus the bourbon and vice versa. So, and then just to kind of talk for the chocolates for a second, and then we can kind of get into sampling some combinations. So what you should have in your chocolate pack is 7 different chocolates. And they're all a little bit different. So I'll just kind of work kind of counterclockwise, maybe. You've got a milk chocolate and caramel, a dark chocolate, which is a 60% cacao percentage, and then another dark chocolate that has a sea salt and caramel. Those are all Ghirardelli chocolates. And then Hershey chocolates, 4 different types. One is just a straight milk chocolate. One is milk chocolate with almonds. Another one is extra creamy milk chocolate with toffee and almonds. And then we have a dark chocolate with almonds. So kind of the idea was to have a variety of stuff, toffee, almonds, going to bring the nuttiness into it, which kind of would go with the sherries. The dark chocolate's going to be more bitter than the milk chocolate. Toffee and caramel are going to bring you that buttery brown sugar, those kind of flavor notes. So you can kind of get the idea that a lot of the things maybe you hear about whiskey when you're drinking it, notes that you get from the whiskeys are similar to a lot of the stuff that goes into making chocolate, actually, or what comes out of chocolate. The way we're going to do this is pretty informal. I don't know if I sent an email out with a tasting sheet that looks like this. And it was really just a way to maybe try to stay organized since we have 3 whiskeys and 7 chocolates, and keeping stuff straight as we go along. You're going to lose track of which one you liked or that kind of thing potentially. So it's just a way if you wanted to kind of either keep notes or ranking or that kind of thing. I thought one of the things we could maybe do that might be fun would be to kind of do a favorite whiskey of the day, maybe a favorite chocolate of the day, and then a favorite whiskey and chocolate combination. So it could be you might like one of the whiskeys on its own. Maybe it doesn't work well with chocolates, and you like a different combination, that kind of thing. So, but this way you can keep track if you want. Use a numeric ranking system or however you want to do it. What I'm going to do is go in order down on this sheet. So I'm going to start with milk chocolate, add the milk chocolate with caramel, switch to the dark chocolate with almonds, and then the sea salt and caramel version dark chocolate, and then kind of switch back to some of the milk chocolates with the coffee and almonds. So kind of back and forth a little bit. And what I thought we'd do is we'll just go down the list. So we'll start with the 12-year single malt, and we can kind of work our way through the chocolates. Then we can do the 14 and then the 16. So kind of repeat the process 3 times. So what you're going to want to do is not eat the whole piece of chocolate in the first sip of whiskey. Would be my recommendation. But like I said, there really are no rules. If that's how you want to go, you can go that way. But really, anyone who's done a whiskey and chocolate type of event before, there's a couple of recommended things. One would be real small pieces or hearts of chocolate, and to kind of let it sit or melt in your mouth a little bit. What we're going to want to do ideally, again, you can experiment. Take a sip of the whiskey first, then do the chocolate. You can let the chocolate maybe coat your tongue and then drink the whiskey with it and see how it maybe changes the flavors of the whiskey from the original. And it's really going to be just trial and error. See if you find that it changes the taste of the whiskey, makes it better, makes it worse, makes the chocolate better, that kind of thing. And it's kind of like what they say, there's no such thing as bad pizza, kind of the same idea. In the end, if you don't get really anything out of this, other than you're just drinking whiskey and having some chocolate, so be it. I'm by no means a foodie. I thought this was just would be something a little different to do in February around Valentine's Day. And
it's a good idea.
Yeah, we used to do these every February years ago, when we were doing more local in-person stuff. So anyway, so let's kick off. And again, I'm going to start with the 12-year bourbon matured single malt and the plain milk chocolate, and then we'll kind of ramp it up. One of the things with milk chocolate is it's going to potentially be more creamy, and it can coat your tongue. It can actually mute some of the alcohol and actually kind of bring down the ABV, so to speak. So you have any leftover chocolate and want to try it with maybe like a cask strength whiskey, it could be interesting exercise as well. I feel like the chocolate actually makes it a little bit more peppery, the whiskey.
I know you want chocolate. Do you want some whiskey too or no? No chocolate.
No,
I cut it up into small
okay.
So
Which is going to run out first, the chocolate or the whiskey?
So if anybody wants to chime in as we're going along with any comments, feedback, feel free. But what you can do is really just kind of work your way down the list, and just kind of compare and contrast as we go. So the first one again was just a basic plain milk chocolate. The second one, different company milk chocolate with the caramel. So you're going to get the sweet, the buttery.
It's easier.
Yeah, I think with the sweeter ones, they bring out the spiciness of the whiskey, where the stronger dark chocolate would make the whiskey taste a little more sweeter.
Yeah, we're gonna get definitely different. So that's why we're gonna switch back and forth, because the dark chocolate will definitely be bitter. Because if you nose the chocolate too, like you nose whiskey, you can, but you definitely can tell the milk chocolate. But the caramel is gonna bring in the brown sugar, buttery flavors as well.
You mentioned the 12 was sourced from Bushmills. Are they all Bushmills?
They
Or do
should
they-
all be Bushmills. Yeah, they're all
Okay.
They've sourced, the brand is sourced from both Cooley and Bushmills over the years. There's conflicting information out there on the website, and I didn't seek out any further clarification, but these are triple distilled. And the feeling is these are all still sourced from Bushmills. The
Yeah,
brand,
that's what sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say that's what I thought, but I asked a Bushmill rep. I was at a tasting in Murrieta last week, and I asked him. He had never heard of Knappogue Castle.
Well, the thing
Because-
is, the brand has been bought and sold a couple times, I guess is how I'd put it. So it's now owned by Irish distillers. So I think there was a few year period there where the brand itself was kind of in limbo. And then IDL bought it a couple of years ago and, started to put some money and distribution behind it again. So I think that's part of it, because it's an independent brand. It's not a Bushmills product. So I'm not surprised you got that answer, but
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't either, but I decided to ask him.
yeah, well, I don't know where you were. Sometimes you'd be at trade shows and stuff, and depending on who's there representing them, they don't necessarily always know a lot about some of their stuff, depending on who it is. So it depends on if it's the makers or if it's just a sales kind of rep in the States kind of thing. It depends on who you're talking to.
As soon as you said that, I thought I got a Bushmills. I just went and grabbed the Bushmills 10-year-old single malt, and I had never thought of that before, and they're spot on. They're right there.
You get the same malt note.
Yeah, I think the 10 is finished in some sherry as well.
Yeah, there's sherry in the 10. So
but it's clearly, I never noticed that before too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are other varieties, kind of one-offs. You'll see once in a while. A lot of stores do specials. Sometimes they're as simple as just a different ABV. But there have been a couple other unique finishes that have popped up from time to time. But this is the core. There's also a 21-year-old, which is nice because if you want, I think it's 46% as well, ABV. And what's nice about that is if you want an aged Bushmills malt, one of the criticisms of the 21-year-old Bushmills single malt is that it's only 40%.
40%, yeah.
So I think the Knappogue gives you the opportunity to get the slightly higher ABV. It's not the same whiskey because the Bushmills is the Madeira finish, and I believe the Knappogue is bourbon.
Yeah, the Knappogue 12 actually they provide that as the premium add-on to the Irish Whiskey Museum tasting.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I just like I was saying a few minutes ago, it kind of gets the simple like 12-year-old bourbon matured single malt kind of doesn't get as much love as maybe it deserves, because everyone's always looking for the newest exciting wine finish or wood or what kind of crazy thing can happen. So it's kind of nice to be able to go back and just have these kind of core whiskeys on your bar, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny though. The Irishman was the one on that tasting because they had the Grace O'Malley, Grace O'Malley Proud Irish, Irishman. Well, I guess that's the one, the Harvest, and then the Knappogue as the finish. But I think everybody preferred except a couple guys that just did shots, preferred the Harvest. So, but I thought Knappogue was a little more premium at the time, just based on their presentation.
Well, it's also.
Are you guys going vertical with these, or are you going across, or are you just?
I'm doing 12. I'm doing all 12-year.
Okay, that's what I was doing.
He takes these Top Gun going vertical.
Yeah. So I just sampled the dark chocolate, which is very different as you might expect from so there's no milk. The other thing with the milk chocolates, it's going to have a much lower cacao percentage, which is the plant you make chocolate from. So the dark chocolate's always going to have north of 50%, some as high as 90%, which will increase a lot of times the bitterness. So it'll be interesting. I'm guessing I think the dark chocolates are going to go better with the sherry when we get there. But I guess there's no real right or wrong way to do it. Another way to do it would be to do all three whiskeys with the chocolate. So it just depends on how you want to do it, I suppose. I think the trick of all this is to not run out of whiskey before you get through all the chocolates. That's probably the biggest challenge.
Well, I've got plenty of the 12, so I'll go heavy on that one first.
Does anyone think the chocolates make it like, or as of right now, prefer just the whiskey on its own? Anyone feeling like that the chocolates bring anything new out of it?
I think the caramel with the 12 was kind of surprising to me. Generally, and speaking of volume, I'm not an expert, but based on volume, I do a lot of dark chocolate sometimes with whiskey. Generally more of a red breast sherry, but having the unsherried 12-year-old with the caramel, really good match.
Yeah, and I think that could be just the buttery sugar kind of part with the straight bourbon malt. One thing too, I mean, I've done pairings before, and I think part of it was just the logistics of doing it this way with in that if you host your own, you can potentially be a little bit more exotic. So you can get, homemade, or not homemade, but like high-end chocolates. You can mix the variety of whiskeys more. So this is obviously three single malts from the same brand. But again, this is more of a logistics thing because a lot of times you'll see where there'll be a peated whiskey. There might be a pot still, heavy sherry component, things like that to really diversify the flavors. And then with the chocolates as well. But with this, it was just from a ease purpose, a lot easier to do, to have the whiskey kits sent that are together. And then with the chocolates, couldn't really send loose chocolates out. So they had to be something that was individually wrapped. So that's why we have the ones we do. I'm waiting for somebody to have some really interesting tasting notes. We've been to some where usually it's more peated stuff where people have really unique and polarizing comments about stuff. These are all pretty straightforward stuff. You're not going to probably get anything too polarizing in anything we're doing today, but
I think it's number 7 on the chocolate with the 12, the almond. If I have them laid out right, that's a really good pairing.
it also has a toffee component. If you're talking the last chocolate,
Second to last. I haven't gotten the last one yet.
oh, okay. Yeah, so that's just straight almond.
But yeah, I think the almond with the bourbon, with the straight but non-finished.
Yeah, and the almond, potentially brings a little bit of bitterness to kind of offset the sweetness, and kind of the mellow character of the bourbon malt. I feel like 12 year it does, I think in one of the tasting notes where it does talk about how it's fruity, it does come across more fruity than I would expect. So I think that works nicely with the chocolate as well. The last chocolate is toffee, which is pretty different than the other chocolates in the mix. It's that burnt sugar, butterscotchy kind of flavor, which makes for an interesting combination with the whiskey.
I really like the toffee.
Yeah, I think it works well with the whiskey. I'm not a huge toffee on its own fan necessarily, but I like it more with drinking it with whiskey.
Yeah, you nailed it on that one because I'm not a big toffee person either, and that one with the 12 matched up well. And my wife, who does not drink whiskey, just had 2 now of the 12 samples with the toffee. So
there you go.
I've been validated. So just you're already. I'm gonna send you another Venmo.
All right, we figured it out. So now you know the secret. You have a number of chocolates handy, and You find
Yeah, no,
yourself,
there's always chocolate, there's always red wine handy. Well, white wine, but yeah.
I was gonna say, you find yourself a new whiskey drinking partner now. Yeah, I think, because wine pairings are obviously a thing, but whiskey as well. I mean, I think they both work. I've attended some with that are more on the foodie side, meaning the person doing it is more of a food expert than a whiskey expert, and I've done vice versa. I'm amateur status in both, so I kind of know what I like and know what I don't like, but
Yeah, I wasn't able to get any shipped to the States, but I know that at some point a few years ago, Dingle had done something with a local
yeah,
chocolate person, and I like across the board, people were really impressed.
yes,
Kind of
yeah.
interesting.
I think that might have been during 2020 they did that. I remember
I
that.
think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. The some of the distilleries do it. So if you're ever, back in Ireland, a few of them have actual as part of their tours, some of the premium tours. So like at one example would be Powers Court that does a kind of I want to call it a food pairing, but it's a little bit of everything. So they've got, I think they do a cheese, there's a chocolate, there's something else I can't remember exact, but there's 3 or 4 different, and they're all locally sourced from County Wicklow. So kind of a similar thing, and then they do it obviously with their range of whiskeys. I think you can do something similar, maybe at Kilbeggan. There's a local sweets shop right there in town by the distillery that has a lot of whiskey chocolates for sale that are whiskey based. And I know the Ahascrab distillery in Galway just added a premium tasting to, they do some food and chocolate pairing. So you're gonna, potentially see more of it. They're fun. They're a little bit different than the standard just drinking whiskey. So all right, well, I'm gonna start, I think, down with using the 14 and kind of go back through and see how some of these maybe are different than how they were with the 12. So again, the 14 is the one that's a little bit more alcohol strength, and it's 20% of it is 14-year-old sherry Oloroso. So you could get a little bit more nuttiness to it, so that could really come out when you do some of the almond chocolates. The other thing too that'll probably be different with the sherry, not to influence anybody, but the darker chocolate bitterness you may find works well with the sherry.
Yeah, I'm a little ahead of you on the 14. I did find that myself. I like the chocolate with the nuts a lot. The pairing.
Yeah.
It's good.
And some of these are going to, maybe exaggerate the flavor of the whiskey, and some of them are going to, compare. You're going to get sweet versus bitter and that kind of thing. So it all depends on which way you like. Um,
Dark.
I do like the dark chocolate better, I think, than the milk with the sherry.
Yeah, definitely complements or holds up much better. The caramel with the sherry didn't really. I'm not a caramel guy, so that's. But I did like it with the 12. So
Yeah. The other thing too with the 14 is, and you'll maybe get that when you do the 16-year-old with the higher ABV. That can, depending on how much chocolate you take, and if you let it coat your tongue, it'll mellow out the higher alcohol too, potentially.
okay, so 14 is 46. You said the 4, and then it goes
Yeah.
down to 43 on the 16.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, the 12 and the 16 are 43, and the 14-year-old is 46.
Do you think the 16 is worth that much more in excuse me, cost compared to the 14?
It's personal preference. I know a lot of people prefer the 14. I think it's probably a combination of they like the higher ABV and the fact that it costs a little bit less. I think it's an interesting comparison that I'm kind of looking forward to doing side by side again today. Just the difference between one that's a marriage of in a 80-20 bourbon sherry versus a one that where it's finished. You just see it what the difference is from that standpoint. I find a lot of times it just depends on the day kind of thing. Sometimes you'll like something more one day, and different day you're in the mood for something else.
On the carpet.
One of the things you can do too on a different occasion would be to kind of do a similar exercise with non-single malts. Because the single pot still is going to bring a little bit more of that spice into the mix. Also, depending on which pot still you're doing, it's already got that creamy mouthfeel. So you're going to, with the chocolate, it can really work. Like Redbreast might be a good example. And even blends that have that have a grain component too, are going to bring a different element to it. But there's a lot of ways you can go because, we have one that's got the sea salt component. You can get, the saltier chocolates and do those with, say, a peaty whiskey and try to bring out that kind of maritime flavor note a little bit more if you're into that.
I feel like I think it's milk chocolate with almond. Really brought out a little more spiciness on the 14, which was surprising because it's just the milk. It's not dark.
No, I kind of felt like that too, that the milk chocolate can make it spicier, which is not what I would have expected. The nuttier chocolates will be, you might find get kind of ramped up a notch with the sherry whiskeys too. Because they'll tend to have a nuttiness character to them anyway.
This toffee is really growing on me. I thought I didn't like toffee, but I may have to revisit that.
That'll be the main takeaway. Well, like I said, at the end we'll do a favorite whiskey, favorite candy, favorite combo. But we've got maybe a leader in the clubhouse.
Now, do you guys find the 16? I'm in the New Jersey, New York area. I don't know that I've seen the 16. I've seen the 21. 12 is everywhere. 14, I've seen a few places.
Okay, it's interesting that if you're seeing the rest of the range that you're not seeing that one. So that tells me that that one's sold.
Right. Obviously, not a high number of an inventory standpoint. And no, I'm not necessarily looking for it. I don't know that I really knew about it. So
Yeah, no, I think, well, it could be they ordered the same number of each and that one sold out
Yeah.
quick, and before they make another order, they're trying to, because I see them all pretty regularly in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Um,
I've seen it in Saratoga. I've seen it.
And is there a big bump? I think someone mentioned before between the 14, 16. Is there a premium? Obviously, it's more, but
yeah, a lot of times I'd have to look off the top of my head. I hate to throw out a number without having seen it recently, but it's usually
About
over.
$40 difference.
It's usually,
Looks up.
I think the 12-year you can get for
just trying to.
50, $60, and then 80-ish for the 14 to 9, and then over 100 for the 60.
That's the toffee.
I definitely get more sherry, I think, just speaking for whiskey now, with the 16 than I do with the 14.
Yeah. How long was the finish? Not that long, was it?
A little under 2 years.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Yeah, the 16 has it's reminded me of like a red breast that if you had the PX, the red breast PX,
Mhm.
which I like a lot. Well, most of the red breasts I like a lot, but that one
Yeah, at least
on the
today,
nose anyway.
I'm definitely getting a more pronounced sherry note on the 16 today than I am on the 14.
And the 16 you said was excuse me, finished Oloroso.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and I think the dark chocolate, the red wrapper one, I think works well with the 16 as well.
Those two.
I think one of the differences too I get with the 16 versus the 14, I feel like the finish on the 16 is longer.
Yeah, there's a noted difference between the 14 and 16.
Yeah.
With the caramel? I haven't had it yet.
Yeah, what's interesting too about the range of the Knappogue single malts is they're all using similar stock as the Bushmills single malt lineup. They're all kind of playing in the same area, but they're a little bit different. So, the 10-year Bushmills with the sherry finish, would be probably most similar to the 16-year-old Knappogue in terms of style, but there's obviously an age difference and a alcohol strength difference. But they all kind of have a little bit of different elements. Of the 16 Bushmills got the port. The 21 Knappogue's different than the 21 Bushmills that has the Madeira. So they're all, even though it's overlap in terms of maybe age, they kind of keep them all separate, even though they're the same source in a sense. Which I'm sure is by design because, I'm guessing Bushmill doesn't want to put out another duplicate product.
Yeah, the Bushmill 16, back when it was $89, not that long ago, that was one of the first things I started to bump up. Outside of the regular Redbreast 12 and everything else, and still holds up. But now if you find it, it's like $149 around me. Still good, but not for $90. That was because I think you just said that's three separate casks they've got going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bourbon, sherry, and then port. So that's generally. It was interesting because in the IWSA awards that we just recently did, that was, I'm trying to remember now. I think it didn't win. It wasn't the favorite. The Black Bush was, which was the only non-single malt of the 5 nominees for Bushmills. But the 16 is generally kind of the favorite. I think the new 12-year that just got added to the range a year or so ago had a lot of popularity too. But it's interesting because maybe it's a price point thing. The 21, I don't see that usually. I usually see the 16 picked over the 21, but it could be for the reason you just said. Up until recently, the 16 was pretty affordable. The 21 was generally not. As an aside, I don't know if any of you take advantage of the Irish retailers, online that will ship, but you can generally find, if you're a fan of Bushmill malts, you can find them at a lot of the places in Ireland that will ship to you, and you can get them cheap, much, much cheaper, even with ship, than you could buy in your local store. So I tell that to people that are Bushmills fans in particular, because, for example, it's not unheard of to see the 21-year-old Bushmills for $250 in stores, local retailers. I know of a couple places where you can get it for $150 online, and even if you spend, $50 for shipping, you're still coming out ahead. So, and if you buy multiple bottles of different things, you can bring the shipping down from a per bottle standpoint. But I found that Bushmills is very expensive generally here versus buying it online. Because I'll see it all the time, and I'm like, oh, I'm not really in the market to buy the 10-year or the 16-year necessarily, but you'll see it a lot cheaper in some of those sites. So not sure why that is. But there's definitely a lot of price variation of some of the bigger brands. Same thing with the Middleton. Different countries, vastly different pricing. And some of the Middleton stuff's gotten very expensive here. As some of you may know, the Redbreast has gone up. But it's very cheap in other countries that they distribute. So if you have any friends who are travelers or around, you can pick stuff up a lot cheaper in some other countries. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think certainly around here, the Bushmills didn't get, I call it the bourbon effect where everything, just the prices went up. I mean, the MSRP went up, but also, like I said, the Middleton stuff, the blue spots, even though it's going to be it's in the core range. I think they're now on their fourth release. The prices around here just got ridiculous. They were sitting up behind the shelf for $300, whereas it's on the Middleton website or the Mitchell website. You can buy 2 bottles with shipping for $139 each or $149 each. And you've got folks paying that almost that much for 1 bottle. But Bushmills in general around here, the 21 didn't go up. But I feel like the Bushmills, and I'm going back about obviously pre-COVID, so 5 years. The Bushmills 21 and the Redbreast 21 used to be right around 220. And if you find the Redbreast 21 now, they want 375. Whereas if you find it available online from Irish Malts, Drinks Hero, wherever, it's way cheaper. It's just a matter of availability, I guess.
Yeah. I always felt like Irish Malt's got a lot of the stuff from Middleton because they're close by in Cork, in terms of sourcing it. So has everyone kind of pretty much gone through? And I don't know if anyone circled back to retrying a combination or.
I'm pretty well done, yes.
Got my favorite picks.
So you can always, I guess you can always change your mind, but let's do this first. What would you say? Well, let's go out of order. Does anyone have just on its own a favorite of the chocolates?
I didn't really eat the chocolates by themselves, so I don't really have an answer for that.
Okay, well, that's fair. Well, you might have just, when you first tasted it, like really liked the chocolate versus others. That's maybe
I'm
where.
a dark chocolate fan, so that's.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Ghirardelli 60% was probably my favorite.
What about the whiskeys themselves? What would people say their favorite of the 3 was today?
16 for me.
Yeah.
I would say 16 too.
Okay.
16, although the 12 surprised me. It's something I have a bottle of, but don't often go for it.
The 12, I would definitely drink the 12.
Yeah. And I think, something you don't think about, it's not finished. And you start tasting a lot of different stuff, and then you don't taste it for a few months. But the 16 is really good.
I'm going to give it one more taste. I'm trying to decide if I like the 12 or the 16 better today. I like them both. The 16 surprised me. I've had it. It's probably been a year since I've had it. So I wasn't necessarily expecting to like it as much as I am today.
Yeah, the nose on the 16, it's almost overpowering compared to the 14. But the taste is right. The taste is right in there. It brings it back.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because I have a bottle of the 12 and the 14. But I definitely, I'm liking the 16 more than the 14. And I like the 12. It's just kind of a nice go-to, bourbon malt. There aren't a lot of them. The Jack Ryan Beggar's Bush is excellent. So there's an example too, if you get that, where it's a 12-year exclusive bourbon maturation, but that's a coulis.
So I was going to ask, but I couldn't remember which one it was. And remember during the tasting.
So you can kind of, because I think the Turcano single malt, the core range is young, the non-age statement and the age statement stuff is all wine finished. So you don't have just a bourbon finished age statement from the Tircana lineup. But we might have a Dingle one soon. I've got to bottle my cask. We're at the 12-year point, and it's a bourbon cask maturation, so maybe we'll have a Dingle one to add to the mix and sample soon.
Yeah, Alan, you've got a Founding Fathers cask?
Yes,
Okay. I did, what'd you go for, cask?
bourbon.
Okay, I've got a sherry cask, which I need to bottle. It's at 10. So
It's a 10. Okay.
Geez, you can marry the sherry and the bourbon, and
I approached unfortunately Oliver is gone, but I initially approached him saying, hey, if I bottled at 8, can we take someone else's bourbon and throw it in mine? And at that point, they got so much going on. They were like, no, we don't know this and that. So and some of the folks over there I've been friends with now for almost 10 years. Everybody's got all these great ideas, and we all just kind of sit there and say. But I've been very happy with all the bottlings I've had. I've been very happy with, but I'm very impressed that the sherry is holding. I thought once it went past 8 years, it was like, oh, you may have missed the boat. But I just had one. I guess it was 9.5 years, and I've tasted obviously my own cask. Obviously I'm biased, but I'm pretty impressed. They've really held on. They weren't overly sherry. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think with mine, I'm not too worried about going too long. It was more with bourbon, you usually have to go a little bit longer. And we did kind of a recent, I want to say 9 verse 10 or 10 verse 11. I can't remember now. But really what my takeaway I was trying to get from a couple people that were sampling with me was, can you tell a difference? Do you think it's still, and the consensus was definitely it's still getting better. So I'll delay and try to be more patient still, which is easier because the logistics of trying to figure out how to get it over here aren't something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, as someone early days at one of the Founding Father events, someone brought it up probably around the 5-year range. What are you doing? Are you going to bottle it? And nobody had any idea. It was, and someone had a very good point. They said, when I got it, it was more of an emotional investment. It wasn't really a financial thing. It was whatever. And that was the very true comment of, I was interested in what they were doing. I was still fairly new to whiskey, and I knew that I liked redbreast, so I went with the sherry. But it's
funny. I went with bourbon because I was a big fan of Powers when I did it. But yeah, I kind of was. My answer to the thing was, well, I'm going to wait, and by the time I'm ready to bottle it, hopefully others will have done it, so I can just follow their example in terms of getting it here and all that stuff, and then the pandemic and everything else. So I don't think things kept changing. So I don't know if there is a nice, easy, this is what you do kind of thing, but I know
don't
one.
you get
What's that?
I said, sorry, I said, don't you get killed with the taxes or something when you bottle it, or?
No, I don't think that's going to be the problem. I mean, that's fairly straightforward. To me, the issue is how you get it here to the States, because, if you're not trying to sell it in a store, it's probably easier, but you still have to get it imported in and shipped to you somehow. So who's going to bring it in? That whole thing becomes difficult.
10 bottles at a time. Bring a lot of friends and family.
It's just, I don't know if anyone follows this stuff, but the cost of shipping containers skyrocketed in 20 during, the pandemic, and they've recently started to go up again because of the whole problem with the Middle East and the terrorist pirate ships or whatever. They're forcing everyone to go. So like the cost of shipping containers has gone back up again. So I'm like, great, because that can really add, because you're trying to send over a small bottling run kind of thing. It's not like you're taking up a whole container. But and then he
That's
has,
gouging though. Gouging though, if they're charging you from Ireland to say Boston compared to going around the Horn.
Just curiously, where's everyone else from? I'm New York. I'm the new guy here, probably, but I'm New York, North Jersey, just outside of New York.
California.
I'm from Ohio.
I'm Massachusetts, south of Worcester, Northbridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I grew up in New Jersey though.
Whereabouts?
Waldwick,
Oh,
near
yeah.
Paramus.
Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
the what do you? I'll ask you, Larry, because you're from Ohio, because you guys have the state-run liquor stores, right?
Correct.
Because it's interesting. I've seen recently you've gotten certain inventory that you don't get in other states.
They're trying to start single bottles in the state now.
Okay. But I've seen where some brands, I don't know if they, even though it's state run, if they're easier to work with from a new whiskey maker standpoint. As an example, like I noticed the Ahasgrad distillery has their products in Ohio, but they don't have them in Massachusetts.
See if I can find the email from them.
They have the I don't know how to pronounce it, the blend, the UAIS spelled blend, and then the Clan Cola. They have a 7 and 11 year, but those are in Ohio. I think they came last year, later in the year, but so I just thought that was interesting. I've seen some other things go to Ohio that haven't gone other places, so they might be easier to work with.
They are having the beginning of next month. They're having in the three big cities, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, are having three, I think, distillers there, and different places are having different drops coming into the state so they're really advertising Irish whiskey in the state right now.
You heard something about something with a Middleton event or something.
I don't know the names of all of them. No, I couldn't tell you that.
Well, no,
But they are trying to advertise for Irish whiskey.
I mean, all the a lot of the newer distilleries and makers that haven't brought product to the States yet are, I think this year you're going to see even more. But I did notice, because it was in the bottle label permissions, the TTNB, for Cullen's bringing a couple of New Hampshire exclusives, and that's a state run.
Wow.
So they're going to have those. I don't know when they've been approved, so it's just one of those, keep hopping on the site and seeing when they might be coming. But, that's interesting that Powers Court decided to bring a couple things from New Hampshire. So, which is good because you live in New England, nothing's too far away. So I guess last question would be, did anyone have a favorite combination, whiskey and chocolate?
Well, mine would be the 12 and the toffee, for sure.
Okay.
And you didn't like toffee to start with?
I don't mind toffee. It's not something that I go to, but I really like it with that.
Yeah, that was my number 3, and I did not like toffee. So, or at least I didn't think I did. The 16 and the red, the dark chocolate, really did it for me.
I'm going with the 16 with the Hershey's dark with almonds. That was my favorite.
Okay, yeah, it's funny of the three that were mentioned. If you had asked me ahead of the whole tasting, I would have probably said those are gonna work well. The dark with the sherry stuff and the toffee one, um, I was pleasantly surprised by. I think it definitely did work pretty well with that bourbon. And it was just this, I don't know, the sweetness there worked with the kind of the fruitiness of that malt. So I don't know if I'll run out and buy toffee, but you never know.
I've never had the Hershey's toffee. I know it was a big Hershey almond and chocolate, or I used to get munchies in the grabbing them the supermarket and then checkout line there.
And again, I'm not a chocolate expert, but I do know that there tends to be quite a lot of discussion particularly when you're talking to people from Ireland, UK, Europe in general, that the American chocolate is lousy, made differently. There's certain ways of how they do it. So like a lot of people will, when they go over to Ireland, they'll buy up a lot of chocolate, even like Cadbury, which is a brand here, but it's different over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Cadbury all over. I had to bring back about 20 pounds of O'Connell chocolate.
Yeah. So, I know there's a big, I don't follow it that closely, but I know people will say, oh, American chocolate's lousy. You got to have stuff over there. So if you ever get the opportunity to do any chocolate type pairings at any of the distilleries, they're going to use, a lot of them will use local chocolates that'll be really good, I'm sure, but it'll be interesting to see, if you're using kind of locally made organic chocolate, things like that could really bring a different element to this kind of exercise than what we did today. But like I said, it's all good in the end. I don't think it's not like any of these were like, oh, geez, that was bad. It didn't work. You're still drinking whiskey and having a little bit of chocolate, right?
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
Right.
So you see anything coming down with the prices, whiskey, with more companies coming in the U.S., or prices still going to stay high?
I don't see them going down anytime soon. Unfortunately, I think the combination of shipping costs, I think the cost of materials is, still going up. And we'll see. I mean, I think another thing we have to worry a little bit about, although probably not Irish whiskey, but it tends to have a trickle effect. I mean, depending on how the elections go later this year, there's talk of, upping the tariffs more so on China. But, it tends to have a point counterpoint thing where it's like all of a sudden just it pushes the costs up and it ends up spreading everything around. So now all of a sudden it's going to cost more to ship because they're charging more for something and vice versa. So it happened before, and then the tariffs were reduced. So hopefully it doesn't play out. That would be more of a next year thing though, probably. But I think this year you're already seeing shipping is a little bit tougher. But I'm not optimistic that we're going to see deflation. Let's put it that way.
I'd probably not see the bargains I seen in Costco like I did last year.
Well, I was going to say Costco in general, those are a bargain to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the California guy, right? with the liquor in the Costco.
Oh, I grew up in Philly, so I got out of Philadelphia before I had to deal with state stores.
Yeah, I too often online I see the postings of what's in the Costco and what it costs, and it's and we have Costco here, but even where I am, it's you can't even have a liquor license at a Costco. It's a separate store outside, and their inventory is not good.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Costco's near me aren't. So I've actually taken road trips down to San Diego because somebody would tell me they got Gold Spot at the Marina Costco. So I drive all the way down there and find one bottle left, but then I found a good bargain like on like Redbreast. Oh, I can't remember. It wasn't a 12. It was what's the next year up?
I
From
think the
12?
cash strength was one they were selling out the door at crazy low numbers that I saw. But yeah,
Oh yeah, but they're not consistent. They're not consistent on their inventory. That's the trouble. You had to sort of have somebody spot something, and but yeah, so there is a freedom of having the Total Wines and the Bevmos and the independent liquor stores, or a lot of the smaller stores. All you can do is see the stuff up above the shelf, and you can't really
Yeah.
look that close. But
Yeah.
but yeah, we do have a little more freedom than many states.
yeah. My first bottle of 21 Redbreast 21, I actually got shipped from California. It was 125 cheaper, and they had a $30 shipping and no tax.
Is that from Folsom or
It was Blackwell's.
Blackwell?
Blackwell. I don't know where they're based, but they're.
Yeah,
He was,
I bought like
willing to ship to New
Folsom,
Jersey.
Folsom, K&L, and some of the other ones. Since
Yeah,
sometimes it's shipped.
K&L on wine. I see some stuff there. Yeah.
The best thing I saw at Costco, but I don't know if it was California, it might have been Colorado. They just had cases and cases of the Gold Spot.
Oh, that was I think California had it.
Did they? And
And,
that was frustrating because you couldn't find it in the regular stores, it would be gouged, and then you saw these cases just sitting there in these Costco's, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah. By the time I got somebody to tell me, by the time I got down there the next day, it was like I said, down to one bottle at the one store. But it just I wish there was consistency. Or you could look to see which stores had it, but so it's opportunity. But St. Patrick's Day is coming around, so I had to go start doing my shopping.
Well, there should be. It's good. It's interesting you bring that up because this is the time when a lot of everybody tries to get their stuff into the States. So generally, over the next few weeks, you might see a few new things pop. But I think they're all struggling with trying to get it. I talked to a couple people and they were like, oh, we're targeting March, but we don't know because it's on its way. It's on, it's still on the boat, that kind of thing. So and then once it gets here, you got to get it out through customs and get it sent. And I know I talked to one guy and he's like, oh yeah, we were going to have it in the stores. And then the warehouse went on strike, so they couldn't get it. It's like, it always seems like it's one thing after another, but I know everyone wants to get their, stuff to take advantage of that St. Patrick's Day rush. So
yeah, well, so when the demand is, you'll see the shelves or displays with Guinness and Jameson, but then you get the other stores and you'll find the stuff. And I was glad to see last year when Dingle for the core really started showing up on the shelves.
Yep.
And it was kind of a surprise, little pricey, but it's
it's $100 around here, and I get it shipped. If you buy two bottles, you get it shipped for like $150 for two bottles. So
yeah, I bought the bottle when I seen it.
The
but
core
then I
release,
got
the
one
blue,
with-
the blue.
yeah, the core. Yeah, and I got the next one. I got the core release. I think at like for $50 equivalent from the auction because
Okay.
I think the same that one auction they had so much stuff out there. There was some steals.
Yeah, with no age statement, I was very surprised they came in at $99 here or more that I've seen it. I'm very happy with what they came out with as the core. But some of the single, they were trying different things. So all the single batch releases some were ports, some were this, some were that, and there was really no continuity. And I get it; they were just trying different things. But I was pleasantly surprised with the core release. So I'm.
Oh no, it's a winner.
Yeah. Back to real quick, the Gold Spot, obviously, which was a one and done, anniversary edition, but they do have. It's called Gold Spot something.
13.
It's a 13-year-old.
Yep.
I don't think they've even released it in Ireland yet. It's
No.
I saw the label pop through in the.
Yeah, it'll pop up. That's the problem when you see the labels get approved, but there's no time frame.
They're way ahead. Yeah.
That's the thing. So it's almost like with something like that, when it hits, it won't last long. But it's
Yeah, that's
interesting.
what I say. You gotta be looking out for it because
Well,
it'll hit before you even know it's here. So
well, the last one though hit Ireland long before it got here.
yes,
This one's interesting. Are they going to release them simultaneously, or you know?
I think the 70 milliliter size now that they can just do one bottling,
Yeah.
and that, like you said, if there's a warehouse issue in Ireland or a tax issue with the VAT, they may release it over here first. So yeah, you just got to keep your eye out. Is unfortunately because those things get pricey quick.
Yeah,
What's the ABV on that? I forget. I seen the label, but
I think it was 53, somewhere up there.
Yeah, I forget now. Actually, I might. Well, I was going to say I might have kept it, but I don't remember now. But yeah, so that'll be an interesting one. That's a new one coming from Middleton. The other one that's going to be coming, I'm guessing more mid-year, is going to be the new Redbreast Missouri Oak.
Part of the Iberian series, then another
No.
release?
So the Iberian is the wine finish stuff. This is
I'm sorry. You said yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, this is the oak, the one they're doing with the different oaks. So they did the Kentucky oak,
Which I liked. Yeah.
so ago. So this one's going to be a Missouri oak, and it's kind of similar idea. It'll be I think a locally sourced tree farm kind of thing using a particular wood that they did finish, but that's been approved. So that'll be the newest Redbreast to hit. So you're going to get the new gold in that Redbreast. Because the other recent stuff they did was the green spot and
the Quail's Gate.
Right. So that you won't get. I don't think you'll get a new green spot this year.
You made me. I think in one of your discussions made me go out and find the Quail's Gate when I heard it was limited edition.
Yeah.
I had to go back to the store to pick it up before it was gone.
Yeah, that's a good one. The one, and I think the one everyone's kind of holding their breath for to see if it comes here, but is the cast strength John's Lane.
I'm just going to ask that. Yeah. Powers doesn't do a whole lot of Middleton. That's kind of their they don't do a lot of different things. That's the first thing I've seen out of Powers in a while, other than like obviously single cask special releases for Ireland.
Well, they've actually really ramped up Powers the last 2 to 3 years now. It's been good. So because last year they did the rye.
Yep.
So
Good
they
point.
added the core component, the first Irish rye to do, and they did it with Powers, and then they did the cast strength. So last year was a pretty big year and they did a huge ad campaign too, the old is gold thing that you might have seen, and there were billboards here. So compared to say the last 5 years, where they were, I would argue, ignoring.
I was gonna say, yeah, they generally did nothing. So
they ignored the brand. So I was pretty happy to see what they did. I mean, I'm not looking for that to become super popular because I kind of want it to remain almost cult status in the know.
I haven't found it on the shelf yet. I'm down to my last of my 3 bottles.
Of which one?
The Powers rye.
Oh,
I know. We were talking about the John's Lane, the cast strength. But as far as Powers in general,
the rye it's not. I wouldn't call it limited necessarily, but I would argue it's more limited than say the gold because they're only doing. My understanding is it's kind of a one-off each year. They harvest the rye and they put that through and they do all that, and then they're not. So it's not a continuous thing necessarily. So they make their bottle run, and that's it. So if they start selling out in June, then they'd probably expand the bottle run. But I think that might be why it could be we're waiting for the next, next batch, because that came out at this time last year. We did that launch event with them in February, right around now. So that's about a year old now. But yeah, I mean, they continue to put out stuff that people like. So now you just got a lot of the new players that'll be introducing things. I think several of the new younger distilleries will have stuff hopefully hit the States this year. I know Ackle Island has some stuff They've released in Ireland, so that should be coming soon. Clonakilty, I think, is going to have their first release this year. That should be a single pot still, I believe.
Yeah, the Ackle Island first release, I was lucky enough to get a bottle of that. It was packaged like a Middleton, the whole wood box and the whole thing.
The single
It's
pot
ve-
still? Which one? The single.
I believe I have a pot still on the way in a trade, but no, the initial first single malt, I believe it is.
Oh yeah.
And it was very different, and not in a bad way. It kind of took me back of just it's on an island, obviously the first island distilled Irish whiskey, but it was quite, and I think Irish American is the parent company. They do whatever, but it was different, but in a very good, unique way. It brought me back to, and again, it was early on, but Dingle like had that little bit of different taste than other things did. I'm hoping to get the pot still. Again, it's only gonna be 3 years old, and I think pot stills for me,
Need to be
younger
older.
ones aren't quite there. All the Teeling releases, I'm not a fan, but a friend is from Ackle Island, and he has friends that ship him some stuff here and there. So
Nice.
hoping to get a bottle of that.
Yeah, if anyone's ever over in the Westport area, it's not that much of a drive. Just cross over the bridge, and it's right there on the right. It's definitely worth visiting. If you're there, go to the beach. Go to the beach too while you're there. You don't want to go all the way there and then find out that hidden beach is there on the end and you didn't go to it. But I think what's interesting about the new stuff is everybody who's been drinking Bushmills, Cooley, Middleton products for years has kind of developed a certain expectation of the taste profile. So now you get these new ones coming out and they're very different. And it's not just that they're young, like Dingle, I would argue, has a very unique note to it. You either like it or you don't, I suppose. Because initially I thought, oh, it's young, and that's why it tastes this way. And then, with my own cask, it's like, well, now it's 9 years old and it still has that note. And then you drink some of the other stuff and you just realize, no, that's Dingle. I think you get it with Cooley malts too. So some of these newer places are going to have a very unique taste, and it's going to be interesting to see how receptive people are to it, I think. And hopefully they are, because more the merrier, as I say. But anyone have any trips coming up to Ireland?
I wish.
April.
Oh, nice.
Family golf trip, and we're doing a Dingle tour.
Why don't we wrap up? I'll mention too, if for those who haven't seen, or maybe if you haven't signed up yet, the next event is going to be in only a few weeks. It's a free event. It's on Irish Whiskey Day, which is March 3rd. For those of you that don't know the history of what Irish Whiskey Day is, but March 3rd falls on a Sunday this year. Last year it fell on a Friday, and we did a virtual event with members on the Friday night. This year it's on the Sunday, so we're going to do a similar thing. I think I listed it at 4:00 Eastern again. So, but it'll just be an opportunity for members to get together, share whiskey. It's bring your own whiskey. It's opportunity to meet people, share stories. I'll have more information specific to the club, our latest whiskey release that I'm working on right now. I'll have more information about that, as well as some events coming up. So if you're interested in meeting some of the other members and hearing about what we got going on the rest of the year, we'll be doing that in a couple weeks. You can just sign up on the website, similar to how you signed up for this. Any other questions, closing thoughts?
Well, thanks for doing
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, sorry, I cut over. He said, thanks for doing this.
Oh, no. I appreciate you guys joining in, and hope to see you soon. And and if you guys see anything new coming along, be sure to share with the group. If you're on the WhatsApp, and you see anything good on the shelves popping up, or at least, but go ahead and buy a bottle or two for yourself before you share it that it's out there with everyone else. But I know
If I see a case at a 13 at Costco, I'll take a picture after I buy it.
Yeah, and if anybody, I was going to say, if anyone wants any Clonakilty products or Red Spot, Joe will share. I'm sure he'll share his contact info, off video, and you can try to work out a trade with him.
Yeah, I have a lifetime about a Red Spot.
So I just like to give you a hard time for that.
Oh, I know. I take it in stride.
It's all good. Yeah, I was going to say, one of these days when it's, everyone's clamoring for that, you'll still have a bottle, so you'll have the last laugh, right? But all right, well, again, thanks everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alan.
Alan. Take care.
Bye.